When you touch me, crazy. I'm crazy the way you love me, crazy.
Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lanore.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. We're going to talk a little bit about training, excuse me, and we're going to talk a little bit about phytoestrogens today. We're going to examine my 5x5 more powerlifting style protocol that I've been using with my ARX machine. I know when I put this picture up the other day, I explained that I have changed nothing about my diet or supplements other than the past 3 months training on the ARX machine. I think you can see pretty distinctly my shoulders and my chest and my arms are much larger, much thicker, and I can tell you much stronger than they were just some months ago before I started training with this this machine. I've gotten a lot of feedback. There's a friend of mine named Josh Trentin who says it's bullshit. He's a purist. He likes machines, but, you know, he likes the original Nautilus machines and stuff. And I think he calls this type of machine a brake motor machine or something like that, which I'll get Jim Keene to explain to me in a minute. There's nothing like the ARX machine. Look, I understand it's expensive. Whenever I talk about it or post about it, people are like, yeah, right, $35,000. Well, this is designed for commercial gym. This is designed for a studio gym. Some people can afford to buy it and have it in their home. My good friend Ron Penna has one. He taught me about it. In fact, he called my approach to training on a genius, and he's actually upgrading his machine because he's going to start training this way also. But this technology is undeniably the most efficient at stimulating muscle growth. I don't care what anybody says, because you have to struggle against the weight, and you can't win because this is a 25 horsepower motor you're fighting against. It not only makes every single rep your 1 rep maximum at that moment in time, whether you're getting stronger or weaker, and I will explain this in a second. But the struggle is what Dr. Milind Watvi talked about on my show probably 10 years ago, in his book of Doves, Diplomats, and Diabetes, where he explains that a sense of risk, even though it's not really risky, because this is the safest machine you can use, because all you do is just stop. If you feel like you can't handle it, you just stop pushing. You stop pulling. That's it. But that's imperative. That sense of risk, that sense of struggle, that sense of strain is required for the metabolic changes in your body that push you away from insulin resistance and push you towards metabolic flexibility, push you away from storing visceral fat and pushing you towards a leaner, flatter look in your core. There's no doubt about it. This is what he talked about. And we're going to get into this in a moment. Then later in the show, Logan Christopher from Lost Empire Herbs is going to come on and talk about when phytoestrogens are actually a good thing. Like my friend Joel Green likes to say, we try to reduce everything to good and bad. That's baby talk. The body is sophisticated, and there's more to the story than just what's good and what's bad. Sometimes things that are good in one situation are bad in another, and vice versa. Before we get started, we have to thank our title sponsor, and that's Legendary Foods. They reimagined the Pop-Tart and made it something not only better tasting than the Pop-Tart, because it really does taste like cake and not cardboard, but it has less than 1 gram of sugar, 20 grams of high-quality protein, and 4 to 5 net carbs if you're a low-carb guy like me. And I'm really not a low-carb guy. I mean, I get 150 grams of carbs a day probably. Most of it is vegetable source. But with that being said, this is the snack that you want to keep in your house, especially if you want to push your kids away from eating crap, because kids love the tasty pastry, and that's evidence that it tastes delicious, because your children will not eat something just because it's healthy. It's got to taste good. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary. Use the code SHR10 for 10% off. Let them know that Carl sent you. And now, without further delay, let's get Jim Keene from ARX on. How you doing, Jim?
I feel great. How's it going?
I feel good too. So you've had a chance to actually review, and we'll play a little clip of my shoulder routine in just a second, so the people who don't know about what ARX is. But explain the concept that ARX was designed around.
Well, it started many years ago with even before that, but Arthur Jones of Nautilus fame figured out there's something wrong with a barbell. It works eventually, but it takes a lot of time, and the reason it takes a lot of time is because there's a mismatch between the amount of resistance we're using and our strength at the time. There's 3 ways our strength changes during a set of exercise. First is kind of everyone understands at every joint angle. So I'm stronger here in a chest press than I am here, on the bench. Second way is from positive to negative. We could control the descent of a far heavier weight than we could have lifted in the first place.
Right.
So we have more capacity to produce force as our muscles lengthen in the eccentric, in the negative. Third way is from the start to the finish of a set. You're very strong at the beginning of a set, but if you chose a weight that matched your strength, well, you could only do one. But your set needs to go longer, so you have to go lighter, whereas a matched resistance would match you from beginning to end. So every joint angle, positive to negative, from beginning to end. So there have been many attempts to vary the resistance against which we contract, and that's known as, obviously, variable resistance, which is a step in the right direction, but doesn't go quite far enough. The Nautilus cams gave you more resistance in certain places where you're stronger, less resistance where you're weaker. An elastic band in certain movements can give you more where you're stronger, less where you're weaker. Putting chains on the bar and bands on the bar can vary the resistance, but the problem is it still doesn't match you concentric to eccentric, and
Right.
Everybody's strength curve changes every repetition.
I mean, think about it. In order to even marginally come close to what ARX does, let's say in the bench press, you'd have to have 2 spotters, 1 on each side. They'd have to have plates in hand. You'd have to start out with a weight that's challenging in the concentric. Then they'd have to slap weights on that makes it challenging in the eccentric, which you're much stronger. And then even then, they would have to somehow look at your eyes and know that this rep you're going to handle more than the last one, and slap more weight on it. It's like it's impossible to do.
Yeah, lots of luck, lots of luck, and people have been trying to do it for many years. But so what we decided was, well, let's just put a motor on it. A lot of people in machine design want less and less friction in various parts of the machines. We thought, well, what if it was 100% friction? What if it just moved and you couldn't stop it? And so equal and opposite, it matched you all of the time. So no matter your limb lengths, your pennation angle, the shape of your muscle belly, your training status, your age, no matter what variable you have that adjusts how your strength changes during a range of motion, we can account for it. So however much you put out, that's what you get back from the beginning to the end of a set at every joint angle, from the positive and the negative. So in every way your strength changes during a range of motion, it is perfectly accommodated, never too little and never too much. So it's never inefficient. It's never dangerous. It's always just perfectly matched to what you can do today.
And that's why I say it's the only way to make every rep your 1 rep maximum at that moment in time, based on how fatigued you are, how fresh you are, how warmed up you are. And I don't warm up. I'm going to just play this. I'm only going to play like a minute and a half of this brief video. So this is how I hit my shoulders on the ARX Alpha. Just watch this for a second, those of you who are watching. And those of you who are listening, you'll hear me discussing things here. Sit tight. So I think I use the ARX machine in a different way than anybody else out there that's using ARX today. And I wanted to show you. The logic behind my utilization of the ARX machine is not to use the standard programming that they offer their customers, but to adapt it to a more powerlifting type training style. I do a 5x5. I do 5 sets of 5 reps, and I focus on a body part. This morning I'm going to train chest with it. And the reality is that I am seeing explosive growth in my body again. That's all I've changed is the way I'm training. In fact, I have no access to a local gym any longer. I'm just training here. The way I start my chest routine off is by doing my shoulders first, believe it or not. And I've had to find a way to do shoulders on this machine because I have the Alpha, I believe it's called, and it's the smaller of the 2 machines. I don't have a pull down. I don't have a lot of other equipment to train legs and do rowing and all the other stuff. That one's more sophisticated than this. So I've had to find workarounds. So my first workaround to hit shoulders is to get into a position where I can use this cambered bar to do an upright row type of a movement. And that's what I'm going to show you here. I'm going to do 5 reps, 5 sets, 5 reps of this. And keep in mind, I do a 25-second rest in between reps because every single rep is a 1 rep maximum with the ARX machine. It's very taxing, much more taxing than people think. Your heart's pounding and you really feel each one of these movements. So in order to do my upright row, and as you can see, I put some pads here because this machine, I have to get my shoulders in a certain position because I have lots of damage in my shoulders over the years. But anyway, so what I end up doing is I pretty much lay down on the machine, and then I'm going to pull and then resist it pulling me back. And I do that for 5 reps with 25 seconds usually. Just going to play this 1 rep. That's all I'm going to play. That's 1. And I rest. I would rest for 25 seconds so that I'm a little bit stronger. I'm not looking for intensity in the sense of intensity where you're doing another rep very quickly and another rep. I'm looking for maximum strength output with each rep. So I rest for 25 seconds. Interestingly enough, we talked about this off the air and you can speak to this. My first 2 reps aren't that strong. They're strong, but my 3rd and 4th are the peak. Like that's when I feel like I've tested my body. Everything feels good. I'm going to go for it now. I'm going to hang on to that negative for everything I got. And that's where I see the 2. And my opinion is in 5 reps, if I get 1 or 2 that are max out, I'm going to stimulate muscle growth. What do you think?
Yeah, you have like that 5x5 routine that you thought of. You are, if I always envision the, the adaptation triangle, the 3 elements of the stimulus, the mechanical tension, the muscle damage, and the metabolic stress. If you're going for strength, which is what you had described, you're going to want plenty of rest in between reps because we don't want fatigue. We just want maximum mechanical tension and mechanical load repeatedly over and over. 5 reps. Then we're coming back. 5 more at a slightly different angle. 5 more. So by the end of that 20, 30 minutes, by the end of your focus on that muscle group, those muscle fibers have had so much mechanical load transmitted through them so repeatedly. If you don't grow from that, you should check for a pulse. It's pretty thorough what you've done.
I'm being sincere when I say this. I'm 64 years old, and the idea that I could reach a level of muscularity at this age and beyond while I said it to motivate myself, it was questionable because my body kind of got like my midsection got bigger, my shoulders started to shrink, my back started to shrink. In 3 months, now keep in mind, that's an old video because now I belong to Planet Fitness where I go and I do legs. I'm training legs again. And I can't train legs on the ARX machine yet because I have to get my left leg to be more stable first. But in the short time that I've been using this machine, all of a sudden I'm thinking, holy shit, by the time I turn 35, I'm going to be a mass monster. Like I couldn't think, you could think that. You could think that in your head, I'm going to be a mass monster, but deep down inside, you don't have the way to stimulate the muscle growth like you did when you were younger.
Sure.
All bets are off. I think that I could probably, I haven't even started focusing on leanness at all. That's not my goal right now. But I really think that I can hit about 250 pounds and then, and on the way there, start to lean out more and more and more. But I couldn't do it without the ARX machine. And I tell people this, and I think that they think that I'm bullshitting them because you're a sponsor. Like, look, Jim, I told you the truth. You guys delivered the machine in December. Right. I didn't start using it, I think, until April. Right? I was like, oh God.
Do we give Carl a machine? Isn't he supposed to? Oh shit! What happened with that?
Yeah, I was like, because I felt the same way. I was like, oh come on. I've squatted heavy. I've deadlifted heavy. What is this? This machine, this technology, and eventually this technology will become cost effective for personal, but right now it's more commercial. That's where it has to be right now. This machine is a game changer. I can't wait to see legitimate powerlifters and bodybuilders start to work this machine in to their training because magic is going to happen for them.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who, it's the old Upton Sinclair quote about it's impossible to get a man to understand something if his paycheck depends on him not understanding it. So there's a lot of naysayers who will point out various things, but and as we say, equestrians are going to ride horses, even if we're over here building cars. So we get it. That there's still, cars have been around 100 years. There's still horse farms. There's still people who ride horses. But even the equestrians will take their car to the grocery store and back to get some food. So even serious trainees, people who spend their days in the gym or people who are very invested in their sport, it would still behoove them to take maybe just one day a week and go do a bunch of heavy negatives on their local ARX machine so that they could stimulate the fast twitch fiber recruitment and the bone density and the tendon and ligament resilience that is the end result, the adaptive result from these new levels of mechanical loading. And it's like you said, you might have, a guy when he gets into high school and he goes and messes around in a weight room, he gets newbie gains. Like whenever you start, you get the newbie gains. Right. It's a new level of mechanical tension, these barbells from what you've been doing. Well, the same principle applies even for seasoned lifters. It's a new level of mechanical load. And so you have, as you've experienced, a new level of adaptive response to that new level of load. So dose response. And so you move to the equator, you get a darker tan. So if you've only lived, up at the 40th parallel your whole life, and all of a sudden you move to Costa Rica, well, the sun is a little stronger there. So your skin's going to adapt a little different. So for you, it's just, you have access now to a new level of mechanical loading, and that provokes a new level of response in your body.
And I was training more frequently, but now that I'm getting stronger, I'm taking, I'm using ARX every other day. Where I was training every day. I would do chest and back, body weight squats. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. And I would hit chest and back on the ARX machine twice in a week, but I can't do that anymore because. Yeah. A single 32-minute workout on the ARX machine. Now that I'm getting stronger, I'm able to resist more. My body is getting more fatigued from each workout. And I'm finding that if I try to train chest on day 1 and back on day 2, I'm not as strong in back as I want to be.
Yeah, and you're doing the smart thing. You're kind of doing as much as you can at first and then letting the data be your guide. Yeah. So if you show up and you produce a lower performance time after time after time, you either got to improve the recovery aspect. So more sleep, more protein, more different types of peptides, something to help your body adapt. Or if you don't want to do all that, you could simply reduce the volume of the stimulus or the frequency of the stimulus. And so as you get stronger, you actually need less. A lot of people think, more is better. But in exercise, all we're doing is a stimulus. Nothing good happens during the workout. We're fatiguing ourselves, emptying out our fuel stores, tearing up our muscles. It's a bad thing for the body. And then the good part happens with the organism later when you synthesize the adaptive response. So if you're failing to synthesize the adaptive response, why, you should hit it less often to allow room and time for that growth. And so it becomes a really excellent, you save time as you get stronger, and it's less wear and tear on the joints, less time spent, and you can go do other parts of your program that you now have more time for.
And one of Arthur Jones's disciples, Mike Menser, in all of his books, he talks about the stronger you get, the more rest you need, because you're making deeper inroads into not just the muscle, but into the central nervous system. Yeah. And quite often, the muscle will recover first, and the nervous system second. And so that's why you're weaker. You're not weaker because your muscles are weak. It's because the innovation to stimulate your muscles to work are going, hey, come on, we just did this. Give us a break.
Yeah, your rate coding is slower. There hasn't been enough time to build the myelin sheaths around the new nerves that have been stimulated. And so that process, that's why we see kind of the bodybuilder, power lifter, teeter-totter, where there are those who are training so frequently on ARX that the muscles can build and build and build, but they don't ever get much stronger, even as they get much, much more muscular.
Right.
Because they're given plenty of time, that every other day, every third day, that's plenty of time for synthesize new meat, new muscle, but it's not enough time to synthesize the new nerve potential. And so they go sort of in periods where if you go once per week, you're going to get stronger reliably, but you might not get as big as the guy going twice or 3 times per week. And so it's whatever your goal is, you can adjust the volume and the frequency to match.
So strength and hypertrophy have long been discussed as mutually exclusive. We know that there's people at a body weight of 180 pounds who can deadlift 3 to 4 times their body weight and squat 3 to 4 times their body weight and bench press. So, but when we look at the research on longevity and the influence on longevity, it's not so much muscle mass as it is muscle strength.
Sure.
And that's something that ARX does better than anybody else.
Well, you got to pick one with a weight, because with a weight, you can go heavy, but you can't go for long. So we can do powerlifting routines and get stronger. Okay. But if we want to have some hypertrophy, well, you got to reduce the amount of weight you're using so that your set can last longer. So you can get more damage and more fatigue, more metabolic stress, greater pump. And so with a weight, you're correct. They sort of are mutually exclusive. There's a middle ground that still works. But with ARX, you can do both at the same time, because you're not compromising load or damage or metabolic stress in any way. So they all kind of develop together in just a regular old B-flat average set of ARX. It's all sort of baked into the cake.
Now, a lot of people I see that have posted videos about using ARX, they're not really all out. They're resisting, and they're resisting, and then they're doing another rep right behind it. And what do you think about this concept of all out, for even 3 reps, everything you got, as opposed to the more paced approach to trying to get 8 reps, and not necessarily give everything you got on any one of those 8?
Yeah. So there's any level of intensity that is instantly possible. So for instance, I'm kind of like you. If I'm going to be doing a workout, I want to be doing a workout. And so I'm going at my maximum all the time. And I have, as Menser would say, a siege mentality when I attack the robot. And that gives me the maximum stimulus. And so I can have a lower frequency, because I don't want to spend all day working out. So that's the way I use it. But one of the feathers in our cap, just as a company, is that strength training as a therapy, as a medicine, used to only be available. It was the exclusive domain of those who knew their way around a weight room. And so what we've done is you can come to a place that has an ARX machine, and it's not a weight room, and you can go there, and whatever level of intensity you desire, you can get. So some clients I'm training, they need strength training. They're in their 50s or 60s, but they're not athletes. They're not like me, as they don't want to be super intense, but they do need bone density and to retain lean mass as they age, metabolic control, glucose disposal, so you can control your sugar and your insulin. They need it too. And so what do you have for me? they say. And if I were to say, listen, you can only use this with maximum intensity and you got to be serious and intense, it would drive them away. And so now they're not getting any strength training. So even, and we were talking about this a little bit off camera, even a half-assed ARX set is still better than a great weight set because of that eccentric matched resistance.
And before I started taking more time off and I was training about 4 days a week on ARX, I noticed that I had to have some of those days where I just didn't give it all. I got on the machine and I still struggled, but I just didn't have the strength in me. Because you know, like when you're resisting like that lay down upright row I do,
that's brutal.
My legs are working, my back is working because that machine wants to pull me out of my seat, and I'm doing everything I can to resist it and focus on my shoulder. And
it's a serious thing to fight a robot. And so what you're experiencing, there's am I recovered or not? You can tell by the data, but you can also tell up here. So it's just like the desire to continue, as they call it in the research, in the literature. And so that desire to continue, you might sit down one day and you're just not feeling it. That's a great sign that maybe you're so strong that you've now placed such a demand on your system that perhaps you require an extra day or two each week. Maybe it's 3 times a week I want to do now. And then you're there. And eventually you don't want to do that third one. And then you kind of settle in at 2 times a week, let's say. And then each time you're ready to rock. You're ready to crush it.
Dan John came on this show many years ago, and we talked about knowing when to lay off. Because most of us, like myself, we will train until it's not good for us anymore because we just love training. You know, we're like working class dogs. Yeah. We're like sled dogs. We'll run until our feet bleed if they don't put the boots on. And so he said what he does with his football athletes is after a long layoff, he has them walk up to a keypad, opens up a word processor program, and tells them pick a key. So maybe they pick the K. He goes, now, I'm going to hit the stopwatch. You hit that K as many times you can in 30 seconds. And he go. And they're rattling it. And then he goes, stop. And they'll count and say, okay, you were able to hit that letter K, 65 times in 30 seconds. Now you have a basis of reference for fully recovered and calm and relaxed.
Right.
Now, when you start wondering, I wonder if I'm starting to flirt with overtraining, do it again. Inevitably, the closer you are to overtraining, the harder it is to hit that key with that frequency because the nerves are running out of neurotransmitters and they're responding slower. And you're going, man, I can't even get 35 in 30 seconds. What the hell's wrong with me?
Right.
Time for you to take off. That's what he said. Time for you to take off.
Yeah. And so there's the data you're using is like the number of key hits. So imagine if you have like your subjective feeling, but also you go and do your best, your level best on an ARX machine, and you're down 26.2% in your max. And you did 17% less output than the last time, cumulative output.
Right.
Okay, maybe it's time for me to take some time off. Maybe I got a bug I'm fighting off, didn't sleep so well, woke up and saw my shadow. There's a million different reasons for it. Because the body's not linear. You're not going to be better every time. And it goes in rhythms. It goes in cycles. So, and even, just cycles of seasons where I'm crushing it in the spring. And then I settle down in a little lower frequency in the winter and my diet changes. And also with, if anyone's doing any carb cycling or any ketogenic cycling,
right?
It can be great, winter time and I'm cutting back the carbs and I'm doing more fat and protein. Okay, I'm going to go a little less frequency and I'm doing negative only, let's say. So only the tension and the muscle damage, not so much chemical depletion, fuel depletion. And then the spring comes around, things are blooming. I'm eating a little bit more carbs cyclically, and I can add in some more glycolytic work into my ARX workout. So because any protocol is possible, negative only, positive only, limited range of motion, speed, whatever you like, you can mix and match. Instead of just doing one thing the whole time, you can periodize any type of thing you want to match your lifestyle, your diet, your sleep schedule, your travel schedule, anything like that. And like you said, do more when you're fresh and then back off when you're depleted.
So I want to put this up real quick because we're going to take a break. Better resistance, better results with ARX. If you go to shrnetwork.biz/ARX, you can learn more about it. I have the smaller machine on the left, which is the Alpha. The Omni is got a lot more moving parts. You can do deadlifts with it. You can do all sorts of great stuff with it. But remember, I'm not suggesting that unless you've got 30,000 plus to spare and you're building a home gym, I'm not suggesting that people buy this for themselves. I'm suggesting that those of you who follow the show that are personal trainers, buy one of these. It will pay for itself because you can put your clients on the ARX machine. They will have no risk of injury. They will feel like they trained, and they will get the results they're looking for, and they will keep paying you, because the reason most people leave personal trainers is because they don't see any changes in their body. With the ARX, look, I'm 64 years old. I got lots of injuries. If I can add this much muscle in 3 months, then think what your clients could do. Again, shrnetwork.biz/ARX. You can also go there, reach out. If you want to try one and you reach out using the message portal on the website, they'll find an ARX machine close to you that you can take a drive to and go check out. Right, Jim?
That's right. Send us an email. We'll pull up our little internal map, and maybe there's not one in your area, but maybe there is, and you can go at least check it out and see what the hell Carl's been on about these last few months, and feel it for yourself.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have a question from Keith Jeter on Facebook. He apparently trains on an ARX machine, so stay tuned. You're listening to and watching Superhuman Radio. We'll be right back with more about ARX. I love this machine. I'm excited about it. Stay tuned. I would easily say that I am the hugest proponent you will ever meet to doing anything that will improve the quality of my sleep. And that's because sleep is linked to just about every metabolic disorder we see in our population today. One of the easiest things you can do to improve the quality of your sleep is to get a pillow that can be shaped into the exact form factor that allows you to get your best night's sleep. And that is MyPillow. I've been sleeping with MyPillow for a few years now, and I can tell you that when I have to travel and stay in hotels, I don't get a good night's sleep because I don't have MyPillow with me. Right now, you can save up to 60% off of everything offered to improve the quality of your sleep at shrnetwork.biz/mypillow when you use the code SHR. Or you can call toll-free 800-889-4938. And remember to use code SHR to save up to 60% off of everything at their website. The Hercules Pre-Workout from Lost Empire Herbs is like no pre-workout you have ever had before. Completely natural formula designed specifically to optimize workouts, provide quicker recovery time, provide adequate nutrition, and get you away from all those no-good, overstimulating pre-workout supplements on the market today. The Hercules Pre-Workout Blend is a mix of extracted natural herbs and mineral pitch. No fake colors, no added flavors, nothing else. Not only will Hercules Pre-Workout formula help your workouts, but you'll likely discover lots and lots of side effects, beneficial side effects. Go to shrnetwork.biz/lostempire today to learn more. GHKCU is one of the most effective peptides for rebuilding more youthful skin, reversing skin damage, diminishing wrinkles, and tightening loose skin. I personally use Restoracell with GHKCU every day. It's making an undeniable difference in the quality of my skin. Restoracell is fantastic for all types of skin. Now you can order Restoracell and save 25% when you use the code SHR25. That's SHR25. While you may be diligent in your workouts and your diet, don't neglect what people see first and foremost, and that's your skin. Go to shrnetwork.biz/blue and use code SHR25 today. Remember those rectangular toaster pastries you used to love when you were a kid? Well, Legendary Foods has just made them better. The new cake-style tasty pastry is like nothing you've ever had before. With 20 grams of high-quality protein and less than 1 gram of sugar, you'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off your purchase of tasty pastries. Now available in cookies and cream, red velvet cake, birthday cake, blueberry, strawberry, brown sugar cinnamon, and hot fudge sundae. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use code SHR10 today.
Dogs should be powered by fat and protein, not carbs. That's why Visionary Pet makes low-carb, ketogenic dog food for dogs of all breeds and life stages. From kibble to freeze-dried and even low-carb treats, all Visionary Pet recipes are very low-carb, ketogenic, and made with 100% real meat protein. Shop now and use code SHR for 20% off your first order today. Your dog deserves the lifelong benefits of optimal nutrition. Make the switch to Visionary and see why smart dogs eat low carb.
There have been no new innovations in men's underwear for hundreds of years. That's all about to change with Sheath. Sheath creates 2 separate compartments for your man stuff so it doesn't get smashed into a mound and sweaty and stinky. I won't wear any other underwear now that I've learned about Sheath, and you won't either. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Sheath underwear. That's SHEATHUNDERWEAR. Use code SUPERHUMAN to save 20% off. I promise you, once you try a pair of Sheath underwear, you will never wear anything else.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where we use oxygen for the power of good.
Hey, welcome back. So we have a question from someone in the live audience. Keith Jeter says, sometimes I improve on one workout and lose strength in another. It feels so random sometimes.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think?
Well, first, that's very common. And like I mentioned, the body's not linear. So you're not going to have, and in the software, for those who don't know, it turns green when you win, when you do better than previous, and it turns yellow. Very, very sad. It turns yellow when you're below your previous performance. And it's very distasteful to lose to a previous version of yourself because you're always compared against a previous performance. So sometimes, for instance, your eccentric max will be up, but your output, the amount of work you did, the cumulative running amount of work, that'll be down. And so is this working or isn't it? And what I like to point out to people, there's a distinction between your momentary strength, the maxes, those peaks, versus the amount of work you did over the course of the entire set. So in a perfect world, everything's green all the time, but reality is not perfect. And so sometimes am I getting stronger? You look back in retrospect and you look at your eccentric maxes over months, and it goes up and down like a stock price, but it's going to be trending up and to the right if you're getting stronger. It's a trend, not a moment in time. And then the output, am I getting fitter? How much work can I do in this set number of reps or amount of time or what have you? And so same way, it's not always going to be up, but it should trend up and to the right. So in any specific workout, to your question, I improve on one workout, I lose strength in another. Any one workout is too short of a time period to spot any meaningful trend. So there is any reason it could be lower. It was like I was mentioning before, maybe you're not hydrated that day. Maybe your stress level is a little high and you weren't focused. Maybe it was too soon since an exertion. If you helped your buddy move house 2 days ago and now you're trying to do an ARX workout. So there's a million reasons it could be lower in one particular workout. The only time you should be worried is if you look back at the last 2 or 3 months and that trend line is sort of flat. Then you know you have a meaningful amount of data, then you have a problem. Then you need to adjust either the frequency at which you're working, the intensity at which you're working, or you need to fix the organism side of the equation. You need to fix your sleep, your nutrition, your hydration, your stress levels, that sort of thing. So any one workout, sort of a crapshoot. Sometimes my output's up and my maxes are down. And sometimes the maxes are up, but I kind of blew it all out in the first couple reps to get my max. And so now I'm fatigued and weaker for the rest of the set, and my output doesn't end up as good as a previous. So over time, so long as they're both trending upwards, it's nothing to worry about because the body's not linear. And sometimes you got it, and sometimes you just don't. But even if you're down 10% on everything, a bad day on ARX is still, we're playing with house money. It's still far better than your best day doing sets and reps and weight. With gravity. So that's the way I frame it.
I put my nephew on this machine to train back because he really needs to work on his back. He's a typical 19-year-old, chest, shoulders, arms. That's like all he really cares about. And so he's been training back at the gym. And I put him on my back routine of 5x5. And I told him right away, I said, don't pull as hard as you can. Don't try to do it. Just, keep the tension there. And the next day he couldn't get out of bed. And so a lot of people I'm telling this story for Keith because those of us training on ARX don't realize how hard we work as compared to people who just go to the gym and play with gravity, whether it's a plate loaded machine or whether they've got a dumbbell in their hand. There's always that moment of rest where the bicep goes, oh God, I can, it's like a rest pause when you're using gravity. There's always points in time where the muscle goes, oh, I'm not being with the ARX machine. The muscle demand is continuous. It's all, unless you stop pushing or pulling, it's continuous. And so you have to be careful. You may be training too frequently. You may not be, I did a show 3 years ago that the single thing, okay, overtraining is not a result of training too often and too hard. It's not eating enough. And people misunderstand this. The reason that guys like Eddie Hall deadlifted, 1,100 pounds is because he ate like an animal to support his training. If you are cutting or you're even eating a eucaloric diet, like your maintenance level calories, and you're training on ARX, I can tell you right now, you're going to hit a wall. You got to eat more. You got to sleep more, because we take it for granted, Keith, that like, oh, well, we've been training. I'm training over 20 years. I get on the ARX machine. It's like a game changer. Okay. I've never felt this way after a single rep before. So look at some of the other things that you're doing. Try Coach Dan John's overtraining experiment. If you didn't hear it, I'll repeat it. Pick a key on a keyboard, open up a word processor, and tap that key as many times as you can in 15 or 30 seconds. And then make sure you do the first time after you've been off for a few days. You've been rested. You didn't go out drinking with your friends and stuff like that. And that becomes your baseline. And then start doing that every so number of days while you're training. And you'll see your ability to hit that key slows down. So you got to take off. You have to take off until you can hit that key the same number of times or pretty close to your first baseline test. That's a very unsophisticated, easy way to gauge whether or not your nervous system is keeping up with your demands. But yeah, the ARX machine is much more taxing. I mean, I am after like that 5x5 routine that I do. I generally sit for about 15, 20 seconds. I get on the Airdyne, and I just kind of get the blood flowing again. And then all of a sudden I feel my energy coming back. And then I do 8-second sprints, 1 minute slow pace and an 8-second sprint. I do 3 or 4 of those. I'm done. I'm wasted after that. You know what I mean? 32 minutes on the ARX machine, a couple Airdyne sprints. That's all I need. I'm more exhausted after that than if I was at the gym, a commercial gym, training for an hour and a half. It's really amazing.
Yeah,
really
it's a lot in a short amount. As we always give the example of, beer and whiskey, same effect. It's the same effect roughly. You just require far less of the whiskey because they've concentrated the active ingredient. And it's the same with strength training. You could use a log or a stone or a barbell or a spring or an elastic band or an ARX machine. It's all the same active ingredient of mechanical tension and its effects. But with ARX, we've just distilled it down into its most potent form, and so you just require very little of it.
So another thing that I've just started to experiment with is BFR bands. I've only done one back day and one chest day with BFR bands on. And I don't have anything to report yet. I need about a month or so of doing it to see if it enhances strength or muscular growth. But I predict it's going to, because the pumps I get are insane.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. It's kind of like if you read the I guess you call it the white paper. There was a guy out of Japan, I believe it was, who was experimenting with this right in the 60s and 70s, and he wrote some papers.
Katsu.
Yeah. And so that and there was another like an EMS device, and there's a wide variety. But these are all solutions for heavy weights are dangerous. So how do I get the same results without having to use a very, very heavy, dangerous weight? And so I could put blood flow restriction. I could do electricity into the muscle. These are all strategies to try to make better use out of the light weights that we are forced to use, because gravity is inherently dangerous when we're using heavy weights. If the bar's bending, you're this close to being in big, serious trouble with one little mistake,
Right.
So with ARX, instead of pursuing it, there's many ways to the top of the mountain, right? So instead of that, we just made it so that heavy weights were no longer dangerous because we're not using weights in the first place. So we've had a lot of fun combining ARX with, for instance, the NewFit. I don't know if you've had Garrett from NewFit on. NEU for neural fitness. It's a DC current EMF device with a specific amplitude that mimics the what comes from your spine. That's interesting stuff. And then also messed around with the BFR bands, and it's a cool feel. Subjectively, it feels fantastic because the pumps are insane. And again, you got to do it for a while to measure any after effects, in terms of hypertrophy or vascularity or things like that. But man, it really amplifies the metabolic stress side of the ARX workouts.
Yes.
You fatigue much more quickly and much more deeply in the same number of reps.
One of the things that I said about ARX, and this is why I went ahead and got a Planet Fitness gym membership, because I can go there and do some pulley work, is at my age, at 64, getting the fascia of the muscle to stretch is harder than when you're young.
Sure.
There's a lot more fibrinogen in there now. It's a lot stiffer. And so the BFR bands fix that by causing muscle congestion and really getting the muscle to stretch.
It's swelling.
I use the B Strong. They're sponsored. They're actually coming back this month, because I have a gauge, a hygrometer. I can gauge. Okay, this muscle is just as tight as this muscle. This muscle, and so I use those specifically. I don't like those bands where you just pull it as tight as you want. These, you actually have a gauge on them. But what I think is going to happen here is I'm going to start to see the changes in the size of the muscle much faster, because the pump I'm getting using the B Strong bands is much more greater than the pump I was getting just using the ARX machine.
Right. Yeah. And if you're talking about myofibrillar hypertrophy versus sarcoplasmic hypertrophy,
right.
These eccentrics on ARX, that's kind of the end all be all for the myofibrils growing, because the muscle damage and so it attracts stem cells and macrophages to help rebuild the meat, the fibers. So those get bigger. But to your point, to maximize sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, you would need, in theory, maximum concentric effort combined with something that keeps the blood from escaping from the muscle belly. And so maximum concentrics, typically only available with some sort of adaptive resistance like ARX. In the gym, it's called a 1-rep max, and you need spotters, and it's very dangerous. But as you've explained, you just sit down on an ARX machine and pull like hell, and it's a maximum concentric.
Right.
And then with bands on, it is both of those things. So that's maximizing then both. And in fact, there is an additive effect of the swelling on the subsequent micro trauma during the ensuing eccentric contraction.
Right.
That is maximum with ARX. So seems like a great way to maximize both things. And so it's like ARX is sort of the platform, the foundational thing. And then I know you like to experiment with things, and so you're on the right track for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I want to take one last commercial break for our interview and come back, and I want to talk about something else I've just started experimenting with. And it happened quite by accident. And I want to know what you think. Should I not do it? Am I actually not benefiting my workouts? Again, we're talking about the ARX machine. There is nothing else out there like it. It is expensive. So don't go there and message me and say, what are you, crazy? Because this machine is made right now for those of you who are personal trainers who want to set up your own gym. All you need is one of these and maybe an Airdyne bike, and you got everything you need to take a client from fat to fit and safely, and they will feel great and they will look great and they will want to keep paying you, because what you do will show immediate results. And plus, they can see their progress on the screen, that they're getting stronger, they're doing more sets, they're doing more reps, they're doing it faster, there's more time compression. Go to shrnetwork.biz/ARX, learn about the ARX, because trust me, some number of years from now, they will have ARX machines for people's home gyms. But this is where you got to start. And again, if you want to try one, go to shrnetwork.biz/ARX and send an email through the website and say, hey, I live in Minnesota, and is there an ARX machine within driving distance? They'll find one. They'll set it up for you. You can go there and try it yourself. You try ARX one time. You just try it. I guarantee you may say, well, it really works, but I'm not getting one, and that's fine. But it really works, and you got to try it to see that. That's the bottom line. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more. Stay tuned. Hey, you've heard me talk about Masszymes from Bioptimizers for years now. It's a safe and natural digestive enzyme supplement that's for men or women that specifically helps you digest the protein in your diet. I never have a meal without at least 3 Masszyme capsules, and that's because I want every bit of amino acids from the protein I eat day in and day out to help this 64-year-old body continue to build new muscle and strength. Well, I can tell you how you can get a free bottle of Masszymes plus 3 free ebooks as a bonus, total gift worth over $81. You'll not only receive a free bottle of the best digestive enzyme for turning all the protein you eat into muscle-building amino acids, but you'll also receive the book From Sick to Superhuman, Plant-Based Superfood Delights, and the Ultimate Carnivore Cookbook, absolutely free with your free bottle of Masszymes. Take advantage of this opportunity fast because it won't last long. Go to shrnetwork.biz/freemassme, that's FREEMASSME, and see why I will never stop taking Masszymes.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
Are you suffering from signs of an unhappy gut? Diversity is the key to healthy, robust inner ecosystem. Body Ecology probiotic liquids are made by fermenting organic seeds, biodynamic brown rice, and chickpeas together to create a diverse culture found nowhere else on Earth. It's the secret to restoring your gut's microbiome for a healthier digestive tract, improved immune function, and longevity. Take 20% off by visiting the website shrnetwork.biz/bodyeco. shrnetwork.biz/bodyeco. That's BODYECO. And using the code SHR20. Being superhuman means being conscientious about the choices we make. White Oak Pastures is superhuman when it comes to raising livestock. They're committed to animal welfare, land regeneration, and rural revival. They responsibly manage the entire process from the pasture to your doorstep. High quality, pasture raised, great tasting meat from a farm you can trust. Full nose to tail selections. They even have options for your pet. Go to shrnetwork.biz/whiteoak and use the code SUPERHUMAN to save 10% off your entire first order. Are you 35 or older? Every year after puberty, your growth hormone decreases sometimes by 50% by the age of 35, and it only keeps going down from there. This affects everything from making it harder to recover from workouts, sleep, and a general loss of a sense of well-being. It also affects your ability to get and stay lean. BioPro Plus is the first of its kind, 100% non-synthetic alternative to prescription synthetic growth hormone treatments. All the benefits without any of the needles or side effects and 100% safe. Previously only available through doctors, you can go to shrnetwork.biz/biopro, that's BIOPRO, and use code SHR30 for $30 off today. I would easily say that I am the hugest proponent you will ever meet to doing anything that will improve the quality of my sleep. And that's because sleep is linked to just about every metabolic disorder we see in our population today. One of the easiest things you can do to improve the quality of your sleep is to get a pillow that can be shaped into the exact form factor that allows you to get your best night's sleep. And that is MyPillow. I've been sleeping with MyPillow for a few years now, and I can tell you that when I have to travel and stay in hotels, I don't get a good night's sleep because I don't have MyPillow with me. Right now, you can save up to 60% off of everything offered to improve the quality of your sleep at shrnetwork.biz/MyPillow when you use the code SHR. Or you can call toll-free 800-889-4938. And remember to use code SHR to save up to 60% off of everything at their website.
Spit that out right now. This is the Superhuman Channel.
Welcome back to Superhuman Radio. So during the commercials, inevitably, I always have an emergency with my next guest, and there's nothing I can do about it because I'm here by myself. I'm flipping the commercials. And it's like, oh,
hardest working man in show business.
I'm tired of this. I got to be honest with you. So one of the things I started doing was during my 25 seconds rest, let's say I'm doing a press. During my 25 seconds rest, I'm keeping force. So I'm watching the force. Maybe I've got 25 pounds of force there, and it's counting down. And then when it hits time to go, I'm already preloaded and I'm going. I'm not as strong when I do that, but I'm wondering if that static in the fully stretched position is actually benefiting me, or should I just rest and go for the rep?
Well, it sounds like what that would be doing, and your observation makes sense, that you're a little bit more fatigued when you do that, because of course you're expending energy and it's not a full total rest. And so from my mind, it's like, if we're going to be doing X, let's just do X. So if I want maximal tension and damage, and that's the sort of the protocol you're doing, then I want to minimize fatigue everywhere possible. And so if it's me, it's like how a lion eats or makes love, or he does it and then he just sits there for 24 hours under the tree,
right,
and hangs out. So if you're going to do rest pause, if you're going to have 25 seconds of rest, if you're doing this type of protocol, then I wouldn't see any particular reason to add the static. But there's also your psychological satisfaction with the workout. If it feels good to do it, you're not hurting anything. I don't think you're losing any gains or anything. It's such a small margin of, it's double-digit pounds. I'm just keeping tension kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
And you're in that stretch position where you're at a mechanical disadvantage anyway. You couldn't do that much work if you wanted to.
Right.
So I'd say no harm, no foul. But no, I wouldn't say there's any reason I can point to do that would enhance your mechanical tension or the muscle damage that you're getting. The one time in the future, if you decide to someday do negative only, there is a use for static contraction right before the negative starts. So that way you're not going from 0 to max negative right away. So I usually do it at 2 seconds. So it counts down 20, 19, 18. So when it gets to 2 seconds, I have people start pushing and building up force, building up force, building up force. And then the machine moves them back and it goes from there up to their peak. So it's like a running start.
So how do you program that if you want to do an eccentric only workout? How do you program that?
So the way I do it is I have I usually just years ago, I just kind of pulled this out of my rear end and it seems to work pretty well. A 10-second excursion in the negative, and the positive, usually I do about half that. So I'll go, and I'm relaxing on the positive anyway, so it's not so much matters. And I'll do two. So instead of the 25 seconds of pause,
you're still riding it on the concentric. You're still kind of just riding it out, right?
Yeah, I keep my hands on it, but I'm not. It's a rest for the concentric. And then in the pause, where you do 25 seconds of pause, what I'll do is 2 seconds of pause at the end of the concentric. And so that way, I know in my head, as soon as this thing stops, I'm pushing. And for the first 2 seconds, nothing happens. But I'm building up as much force as I can, and then it begins that eccentric and moves me back. And so that's usually how I would do the negative onlys. But it seems to help people to build up as much force as they can statically at mechanical advantage at the end of their concentric before the negative begins. Like you're already locked in and fired up, and then you can get far higher peaks in the ensuing negative.
Interesting. And, we did a show, I think it was you and I, maybe it wasn't. I think maybe it was somebody else from the ARX team, that VO2 max is affected to a greater degree by resistance training than doing endless cardio.
Right.
And I have to believe that the ARX machine is going to improve VO2 max faster than any other type of resistance training.
Yeah, if in principle that makes sense, because improvements in how we handle oxygen are not seen in the heart and lungs. When we fatigue, it's not because our heart and lungs have failed to provide the oxygenated blood. It's because the muscles that are working have exceeded their capacity to process the incoming nutrients and expel the exhaust from using fuel. So then it all stacks up in the cell, and you can't use any more glycogen for your exertion. So if you maximally tax the glycolytic enzymes that are part of this process through these maximum concentrics, well, it sort of makes sense that you would maximally stimulate positive upregulation of those enzymes, for the same reason that we see that high intensity interval training is more effective and more efficient for the improvement of VO2 max than low intensity, longer duration exertion.
Steady state
And
stuff.
so, yeah, same.
And people shouldn't interpret that as that's all you should do is high intensity interval training. There is a place for steady state training.
Yeah, the zone two research I know you're very familiar with. That's it's fantastic. It's not just we need to be doing one thing. It's just tools in the tool belt to maintain a human body. You know,
the body becomes its function. If all you do is one thing, that's all you'll be able to do.
Right.
You know, you got to be a little bit more expansive with the way you.
It reminds me. I just heard this quote from or remembered it. There was a guy in the early '90s, a fullback for the San Diego Chargers. His name was Leroy Horde. And Leroy Horde had a great quote. Some interviewer was asking him about something. His quote was something like, "If you need 1 yard, I'll get you 3 yards. If you need 5 yards, I'll get you 3 yards." He's like, that's all I do. Listen, man, do you want to hire me or not? I'll get you 3 yards. Like,
that's funny. That's hilarious. So is there anybody else doing anything exciting with the ARX machine, experimenting with different protocols?
Yeah, there's some unique scenarios so when someone comes and says, "Hey, I need something different than the boilerplate. I have this special use case. Can I talk to someone?" It's, me they end up talking to. And so there's, Olympic hopeful decathletes, and like some MMA guys at different various levels, and some for instance, hypothetically, if a professional wrestler had 4 months before he needs to get back on the road and he needs to get as jacked as possible, what should he do? And so these types of things are just special routines. And as an example, there's a lot of negative only stuff I've been prescribing just because a lot of these very active athletes, they're already doing plenty of concentric work. Thank you very much. Like, so every day of their training, they're doing something else, high fatigue, high exhaustion, a lot of concentric work. But what they're not getting, because they're so fatigued, they're not getting high levels of mechanical load through their bones, connective tissues, and muscle fibers, because they can't go very heavy, because an injury is millions of dollars lost. So they can't do that. And so it's a lot of, negative only is a very popular protocol with ARX. And then people have been experimenting with, if I have some help on the recovery side of various things, you can go more often and your recovery is augmented. So there have been people doing full body workouts, multiple sets of each movement 3 times a week, and been seeing really, really impressive growth, as you'd expect when your recovery side is augmented like that. Yeah, that's sort of the state of it these days.
Do you have any power lifters? Do you have any professional strength athletes using ARX right now, or are you talking to anybody about using it?
So not that I'm aware of. I know some of our customers have clients who are high level athletes, and we don't always hear about that. It's just some guy's client who happens to be. I do know I'm going to be designing a protocol, chatting with a guy who is going for, I'm not sure what weight class he's in, but it's a drug tested organization. They're having a meet in November. I wish I remembered the acronym. And he's going to try to set a deadlift world record for his weight class. And so he's like, "Hey, what do you got for me? How should I mix and match this with my regular training?" And then there's another client. He's out in Portugal, and a recent client. Or customer, and he's wanting to do 2 things. One, there's a world record out there that is the greatest amount of weight you could put around your hip belt and pull yourself up. So there's a Guinness World Record of that. I think it's like 5 plates or something like that. So he's like, "I'm going to be going for that. What do you have for me?" And that same guy is also going for a record of how many push-ups can you do in 60 seconds. There's a Guinness Book World Record for that. So It's been interesting designing routines and protocols for these very niche sort of outlier, because mostly we're just talking to the middle of the bell curve, just people who want strength and size. And it's those type of people. But I can't think of any big name strength athletes yet. It's kind of like it'll be a competitive like arms race. Once the first or second or third guy starts getting these big negatives into his routine, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months down the road, he's going to be getting newbie gains all over again and start getting stronger for his weight and so forth. And the competition will need to keep up. And they're either going to use ARX or something that functions precisely like ARX, and we're not aware of anything like that.
What about what is he using for the deadlift? Is he on the Omni?
Yeah, he has access to an Omni, and so there's just the deadlift on the Omni, and he's using that to work through his sticking point. So everyone with different femur and torso relatively.
Sorry about that. Ghosts in the system. Ghosts in the system. Yeah,
It's like
different sticking points, right?
yeah, the my FBI guys. Don't let him talk about deadlifting. Working through the sticking point of your deadlift, so that's a possibility. And so he's working just neurologically through that part of the range of motion, but also just how guys do walkouts. So they'll walk out of the squat rack with 1,000 pounds, even though they could never squat 1,000 pounds.
Oh,
just
yeah.
to stand with it and then put it back.
I call it wearing the weight. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it's like that, but through a range of motion, because ARX is never going to fall on you. So it's a lot of priming the nervous system to handle. If you're going to pull 700 pounds, you could probably resist over 1,000 safely using ARX. So he's doing a lot of that and a lot of posterior chain work just in general on the Omni. But yeah, it's like if your nervous system and your bones and your muscles are accustomed to having over 1,000 pounds transmitted through them using the ARX, when you return to your weight practice, that weight in your hand is going to feel a little lighter by comparison. And
right.
So, and then along the way, you're building a greater fast twitch fiber expression. There's those intermediate fibers that can kind of go either way, but the highest force demand of which we're capable is these maximum eccentrics. And so if you're hitting yourself with these max eccentrics over the months, those intermediate fibers are going to phenotypically express more fast twitch. They're not going to become like 2X fibers, but they will be stronger and quicker to fatigue. So a more fast twitch profile. And in a 1 rep max, in a powerlifting meet, you only need the 1 rep. So that's
right.
been a popular thing for them.
Fascinating. So I just got some bad news. I don't think my second guest is going to make it. There's been some sort of complication with the link to our video platform.
Oh.
He can't get it to work. He's been on before, so I'm sure that he knows what he's doing. But we'll have to reschedule Logan Christopher for another day to talk about the potential value of phytoestrogens. Because we always talk about phytoestrogens being bad for you, but
right.
maybe they're not in certain conditions, and we'll discuss what those conditions are. Again, I'm going to tell people where to go if they want to learn more about the ARX machine. The website is ARX FIT, ARX Fit. I'm sorry. The link you should use is our tracking, so we know that you go there. shrnetwork.biz/ARX. Check out the machine. Contact them through the website. Ask them for someplace close to you where you can try it out. See for yourself. I guarantee. Look, my nephew Timmy didn't think that there was going to be any real consequence because his dad has a tonal at home, and I guess the tonal is supposed to be similar, like it adjusts the resistance somehow, blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, I've used the tonal before, and I put him on the ARX machine, and just one back workout. That's all it was. Just five sets, 5 reps, change the hand. Exactly what I do. I gave him clear instructions. Don't pull as hard as you can. And he said that he couldn't get out of bed the next day. His back hurt so bad. And he goes, I've never felt my back like this before. And so, it's different. That's all I can say. It's different. It's different. And it's different in a great way, because I predict that in years to come, we'll look back at the way we've been training and compare it to ARX and go, man, like, wow, what were we doing? Why were we doing this? This is like caveman stuff. Look at this, So
It's like putting leeches on George Washington. What were you guys doing, man?
Yeah. Jim, thanks for making time to come and talk about this. And again, ARX machine is the future of training. I'm telling you right now, of resistance training. There's nothing like it. Every single rep is a 1 rep maximum at your strength at that moment in time. You can't do that anywhere else. Can't do it in the gym unless you're on an ARX machine. Well, Jim, take care, brother.
Yeah, thank you for the time. Appreciate you.
Take care. And we'll see everyone tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio. Sorry for the screw up. Logan Christopher, we'll figure out what went wrong, make sure it doesn't happen next time. Okay, remember, get into the gym. Muscle is metabolic currencies. Get into the gym and make a deposit today. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.